Hello, welcome back to Send Them Off. This is number 20. It's the end of the road. We've finally done it. When I say we, I am, of course, on about myself, Sam. And joining me, as always, is my ever-present podcasting partner, Alex. Are you tired? I am.
I feel like, when you like breathe out, it's like it's that we're at the end now.
Yeah,
and
I loved it, though, to be fair.
I've enjoyed it, but it feels like we said this, I don't know how many episodes ago, but it feels like ages ago when we started with City. It does feel, it feels like another season ago, but yeah. Anyway, you know the drill. So what we got with us for the final, the final one?
Yeah, the last one, pre-season preview. It's Watford today, one of the Premier League's new boys, and we're delighted to be joined by Bradley, the host of Trip Down Vicarage Road podcast. Bradley, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. No, really happy to be here. I just hope this isn't gonna be an early warning sign of where Watford might finish this season.
What, the last one?
The last one.
Fingers crossed.
Propping up the pack.
Fingers crossed. I feel like we should start with some signings. It's been a busy window for you guys.
I was going to say, quite a
lot of
busy
players
transfer
brought in,
window.
and a lot of Premier League know-how brought in. I'm looking particularly at Danny Rose and Josh King. A lot of Premier League know-how. Could come in clutch for you.
Yeah, I think as well as that, I think there's a lot of players with points to prove as well. You mentioned Danny Rose there. He's been out in the picture at Spurs for 18 months. You know, one of the main reasons why he joined was, I think he said in his interview just afterwards, that Gino Pozzo, Watford's owner, said to him he wants to be the person that gets him back on the map in the Premier League. So, he's been out the picture for 18 months. Has done reasonably well in pre-season. Fully expect him to be Watford's first choice left back this season. You mentioned Josh King there as well, who's obviously done really well for Bournemouth at this level. Always had a habit of scoring against Watford, funnily enough. So hoping he'll actually might score some for us this season rather than against us. But he's someone who's also got a point to prove as well, considering, done really well at Bournemouth, didn't get the big move that he wanted, made to play in the Championship, didn't really perform because his head wasn't in it. Got his move to Everton, didn't really get a chance there as well. As well as that, you've got someone like Emmanuel Dennis, who arrives at Watford with something of a bad reputation, considering he scored a couple against Real Madrid in the Champions League a few years ago. Then last season, he got kicked out of the club he was with in Belgium because someone had occupied his seat on the coach, and he threw a hissy fit and then got farmed out on loan to a team in Germany. Didn't really play there. So he arrives at Watford with lots of potential, but again, a point to prove. And then as well as that, there's plenty of other signings that Watford have made, some younger ones that we probably won't see too much of this season. And then you've got someone like Imran Louza, who I imagine will be a key part of our midfield this season, and someone who's technically not a new signing, but will feel like a new signing to Watford as well, is a young Colombian midfielder called Chicho Hernandez, who's been on Watford's books for about 3 years now, but been farmed out on loan to Spain. Done really well for Huesca, who and so much so that apparently the likes of Barcelona were tracking him. Was back up on loan in the Liga last season, had a decent-ish season, and come back and looked really promising in pre-season. So expecting him to be around things this season for Watford as well.
Yeah, pretty. You sound optimistic.
He does, doesn't he? He sounds quite upbeat about it.
Because we've chatted to we've chatted to every team now. And Chris, who we chatted to, our Norwich representative, he was also very, very optimistic. And I think
there's something in the water down in the Championship with us, isn't it?
A lot of the media perhaps are writing off, particularly Norwich, but also Watford, I think. I mean, I'll level with you. We're doing our predictions later. You're in my bottom three. I'll level with you.
I haven't sort of gone either way yet with Watford. I'm going to see what you say first.
Yeah, Bradley, this is your chance now.
This is your chance. You've got to sway me now.
Like quarter of an hour or so, you can get yourselves out of this bottom three.
This is my time to shine, is it?
Yeah. I don't know. I suppose though, I look at your side, and you've obviously got the cycling goalkeeper, who we all love, but yeah, he's obviously going to be invaluable in the dressing room, I think, more than anything, because you've got is it Daniel
Bachmann? Yeah,
Bachmann.
That's the one. Yes,
that's the one.
Yeah. He impressed me in the Championship last year. Will Hughes as well. I know there's been speculation about him getting a move, but if you keep him, he could potentially be a decent looking Premier League player.
Yeah, I think the big thing with Will Hughes is if at the moment, and it seems very much like he's out of the door. He's been banished in under 23s, not been pictured once in pre-season. Nothing has been made of him. He played in our under 23s against St Albans the other week. It's a shame to see him go, really. And another one who's potentially on potentially going out as well as Nathaniel Chalobah as well. So if we lose Hughes and Chalobah, that's two of our midfield three who were starters for us really last season that are out the door. I know we're looking to potentially bring in another midfielder, like some Morton Thorsby's been linked. Akayi Kuzla, who was on loan at West Brom last season. Marvelous Nakambu, the Aston Villa player, has been linked to us today as well. So it seems like another midfielder will arrive and probably be a replacement for Will Hughes, who unfortunately looks like he's out the door, rejected a 5-year deal with Watford. It would have probably made him one of the highest paid players at the club, but I think what's been a massive turn off for him is I think there was talk of a potential relegation clause being put in there. And I think from Watford's point of view, it's quite sensible because last year our club pretty much said, our chairman, Scott Duxbury, pretty much said that if we didn't make it back up at the first time of asking, then Watford might have been in serious financial trouble. So, and I think they were saying as well, we can't, obviously our main aim is to stay in the Premier League, but we can't be stupid enough to think that we might not go back down again, and we need to prepare accordingly and fit wages into a reasonably sort of good wage bracket, so that the worst case does happen, then we're not under pressure to sell key assets really in case we go back down again. I think the player who's going to be so key for us this season is Ismail Assar, because his pace, you know, he's a real thorn for sides, a fullback's nightmare, really good finisher as well. If he can work on his crossing and improve his accuracy there, then he'll be a complete player. And there's no surprise that Watford are potentially looking to try and get 50 million out of someone for him.
Yeah.
One question I want to ask is about, you know, you were talking about like the wage packet and the, you know, the experience and things, and we've sort of talked about Ben Foster and, you know, obviously Danny Rose will probably command quite a fee as well in terms of wages. But what about Tom Cleverley? Where do you stand on Tom Cleverley? Because he's someone who I almost forgot existed, I'll be honest with you. And I didn't really see him play well when I tuned into Watford last season, you know, because, you know, we spoke, as we mentioned many times on the podcast, we're Swansea fans, and we tune in now and again. And I didn't really see Tom Cleverley play an awful lot when I watched him. So where do you stand on Mr. Cleverley?
A really consistent performer for Watford. I mean, he's never one that's going to play every single game, because it always seems to pick up niggly injuries throughout the season, because he's at that age, or he's at the start of his 30s. So he's not going to be one that's going to be able to play week in, week out. He's probably going to have a few injuries here and there that are going to keep him out for a few weeks. But he's someone that he's played in a few different positions for Watford since he's joined. He's played as more of a box-to-box. He's played as a number 10, which he's actually played really well at, considering he's really tenacious in terms of his pressing, has lots of energy. I mean, he'll run about all day for you. And in terms of effort and grafting, and someone you can always rely on to put in a solid performance, Tom Cleverley's your man, because he'll always give you a 6 or 7 out of 10 every week. You know what you're going to get. You're going to get loads of hard work, lots of pressure, lots of running about, trying to put himself about, trying to make himself free. Decent passer of the ball. Not quite someone like an Etienne Capoue we had before, who could be that deep line playmaker and could spray balls left, right, and centre. But as you say, someone that is probably a real key influence in the dressing room, one of the older heads. Certainly if Mr. Deeney doesn't play as much this season, which probably, considering the fact that he didn't play an awful lot towards the end of last year through injuries, and Watford showed that perhaps they don't need to rely on Troy so much, which is something that a lot of fans have perhaps wanted for some time. But he's someone who's a real captain figure, Tom Cleverley, for Watford. So someone you want in and around the squad, probably in the Premier League. Maybe not someone who can be starting every day, because he maybe doesn't have the quality, you know, as he once did when he was at Manchester United. But someone you definitely want to have around the squad. And when he does play, and I certainly will expect him to start a fair few games for Watford this season, someone you can always kind of rely upon to perform. And as things stand at the minute, I would expect him to play as the more advanced sort of midfielder in our 4-3-3. and really trying to be that one who's kind of leading the midfielders to press for us.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I was the same, to be fair. I've completely forgotten Tom Cleverley existed.
Yeah, he was one of them ones I just thought he dropped off the face of the earth at one point.
Yeah. But, one thing I'm noticing looking at your stats from last season, 30 goals conceded in a 46-game season. That's pretty decent.
Very good.
And I know your coach came out today and said his focus is clean sheets. That seems to be very much your focus going into the season. And I mean, if you can back that up with players like Emmanuel Dennis, come in, and Ismail Assar, who was, I mean, how you kept him last year, I will never know.
Yeah, I know.
Same here.
As Swansea fans, we all talked about Andre Ayew last year and the year before not being a championship player in the slightest. But I think Ismail Assar is cut from the same rug, really.
Yeah.
Outstanding whenever I watched him last year. I mean, he went from dismantling Liverpool, like the Premier League champions.
That's the game that I always think back about Star. It was that game. And did he not score a hat-trick in that game?
2, I think.
Scored a double, yeah.
Yeah, a brace. So there we are. But yeah, he dismantled them and, you hung on to him. So yeah, that says a lot about the project really that's going on there.
Yeah, definitely. His pace is so frightening. And I think what you were saying there with our defence, I think what I'm expecting from Watford this season is to try and soak up pressure, look to kind of sit back, probably let teams have the ball. And then when we do have it, we're going to want to try and break with pace, whether that's Sarr and Sema on the flanks, whether it's Sarr and Chicho Hernandez, or whether it's Sarr and Josh King and João Pedro whenever he's back fit. So fully expecting Watford to be a real counter-attacking team this season because they've got the pace to do it. Whether they've got enough goals is another question. Hopefully we do, but there's still a lot of question marks surrounding what sort of potential or how many goals we can score this season. But going back to Sarr, absolutely a real threat, can score goals for anywhere. Good penalty taker too. So, I put him in my fantasy team. So I'd recommend anyone who kind of wants a cheap midfielder or a cheap winger to put in their team, then I think Ismail Assar's your man, really. Will be key for Watford this season. Expect him to get a lot of goals, 13 last season, our player of the season. Expect him to get plenty of assists, really. I expect us to try and hit him as quickly as possible, get him running in behind, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have plenty of men in the box for him to aim for, and hopefully not Andre Gray, who will probably lash one over into the cemetery or into Watford Hospital.
Tell you what, I might have to take you up on that.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, I almost wish you didn't say it with Sam because Sam's a lot better at fantasy than I am. He'll be shrewder.
Long-standing rivalry in fantasy football. You'll have to join our league, Bradley. You'll have to join our league. Interestingly, though, what you said about not being able to score goals and how you doubt that. A lot of the time on these season previews, we've gone, I'm not sure if this is a squad that will survive, about not necessarily Watford, I mean, we said about Burnley, I think we did, Al, and Newcastle, but are there squads worse than this? And I'm looking at your attack now, and I'm looking at Dennis and Sarr.
Even the midfield as well.
Josh King, and I'm thinking there are attacks in this league that are far worse. Burnley, I can't see scoring as many goals as Watford this year.
Well, have a look. It's because you mentioned your top scorer last season was Ismail Assar, 13 goals, but you had 63 goals. So, how many is that? 50 other goals coming from other places in the team. So I don't think, goals are a big concern because obviously Watford can find the goal and not just through the top goal scorer. Do you know what I mean? So I look at teams, we mentioned Burnley, Newcastle, and I think, I think they'd be a little bit worse off than.
You could well be in with it. You are starting to convince me now. I'm coming around the idea that Watford might stay up. Who knows?
And even looking at the first five as well. I know we'll probably get onto that later, but first five, there's some pretty
winnable games.
Yeah, exactly.
And Villa have got no Grealish, obviously because he's gone. I think they've got no Buendia this weekend. They've got no Leon Bailey. They've got a couple of others out injured as well. So I think it's among their new signings. I think it's only Danny Ings and Ashley Young who probably bang a free kick against us, knowing him. But it's only them two of their new signings that will probably start. So I'm a lot more optimistic going into that first game. For us, we've not got too many injuries as well. I think someone as well who's going to be key to our attack. He's gone under the radar a bit. João Pedro, really exciting for us. Didn't look out of place in the Championship last season. He's one of those where he was at times he was on a completely different wavelength to some of the players around him, because he was doing things that, if the top players in the Premier League were doing, it would be replayed over and over again. I mean, I don't know if you saw his goal against Derby County last season away from home, picked the ball up, edge of the area, just took a look up and just curled it straight into the top corner. He's someone that can quite versatile as well. He played as our lead striker at times, also played out wide, also played as a number 10 for us as well, and we had quite a few injuries. So there's definitely goals in there if we can get people into the right position, as you say. There's lots of question marks considering, the likes of King and, Dennis are coming here with a bit of a point to prove and haven't set the world alight over the last 18 months. But if Watford can get them back to anywhere near kind of their best and what they've shown they can do in the past, then we can score goals. I think at the minute, my main area of concern is the midfield. I wonder whether at the minute, if we do lose both Hughes and Chalobah and whoever we bring in, I wonder whether at the minute, whether it looks like Hughes and Chalobah are out the door, I wonder whether our midfield may be slightly at risk of getting overrun, because at the minute, it would seem like our midfield three for next weekend, I would hazard a guess, would be something like Dan Gosling, Tom Cleverley, and Imran Louza. I think Dan Gosling's done all right for Watford, popped up with a couple of key goals last season. Whether he should be starting for a Premier League side is another question, someone you want to have around the squad. So if we do lose Hughes and Chalobah, then I think we definitely need to bring in another midfielder. And I suppose the midfield is the one key concern for us at the minute. I've completely forgotten as well Peter Etebo. So actually, scratch that. I would imagine Etebo would start instead of Dan Gosling maybe for us. Who's Etebo, another one who arrives at something of a point to prove. Watford have tried to sign him 3 times in the past. He's turned them down, gone elsewhere. Come here, done okay at Stoke. Sort of have question marks surrounding his attitude and mentality about when the teams are losing, whether he can step up and perform. Been out on loan the last couple of years, but in pre-season is quite impressive for Watford. So the minute I'd probably change that and say Etebo, Cleverley and Louza will be our starting 3 next weekend. But hopefully we'll bring in another midfielder or 2 if Hughes and Chalobah leave.
Fingers crossed. I don't know about you, but I see it as a sort of season of, I feel like I'll get a better idea of Watford about 5 or 6 games in, and I'll be like,
I was going to say by Christmas.
Yeah, and I think I'll either be, they're down, or I don't know.
If the manager's still here, it's a bonus.
Yeah, your ball are wacky, aren't they? They just sack anybody, didn't they? I love it. It must be a nightmare. They are, though. It must be a nightmare being a Watford fan. You just wake up, you have a 4-0 win the day before, and your manager's gone or something like that.
Yeah, Kike Sanchez-Flores has come back for the 3rd time.
Yeah.
He's out there.
Is it the 3rd time?
Well, he's been back twice already, and hopefully it won't be for round 3.
Oh, right, I see. Yeah,
how round 2 went last time. But yes, it's never boring being a Watford fan. Put it that way, because if we're not changing our manager, we're either completely ripping up the script and performing against the big boys, or we're getting smashed 8-0 by Man City. So there's no in between.
One of the two. Just quickly before we go, because we are running out of time. Alex,
is it time?
The last time.
For the last time.
I always ask 2 questions before we go. Firstly, where do you think you're going to finish this year? Are you willing to risk a prediction?
My heart says 16th. My head says the bottom 3. But I'm going to go with my heart and say we're going to stay up and we'll finish about 16th. And then we'll kick on, hopefully. And Xisco Munoz will prove everyone wrong, and also prove Watford fans wrong a bit as well, because quite a little bit of a split opinion amongst the Watford fan base about him at the minute. And there's 2 kind of camps of Watford fans at the minute. Some that are really optimistic, which I think I'm in the camp of that. Whatever happens this season is going to happen, but fingers crossed we'll stay up. And there's the other camp, which was that we're just walking straight back to the Championship. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get off to a good start. As you mentioned, our first few games are quite promising in terms of who we play against. If we can get to the end of October with 10, 15 points on the board before we play the big boys in November, I'll be happy.
I think you've got to go into a season with an element of optimism.
You can't go in and say, well, if we get relegated,
unless you're Derby County, maybe.
Yeah,
but we'll see. We'll see. Last question: who is your man to watch, star player? So for anybody listening who's not a Watford fan, who is your one to keep an eye on this season?
It's quite obvious choice, I think, is Ismaila Sarr. I think he's going to be fundamental to our chances of staying up. He's that one real attacker who could play for a top 10 Premier League side if he wanted. And I fully expect if he has a really good season again this year, if he gets 10 goals, something like that, I fully expect one of the teams in the top 6 or top 8 to come calling and try and take him off our hands. And, if we could get 50 million quid for him, which I think is the asking price, probably be a good deal. And we'll take it and hopefully invest it.
We'll
so
see.
Obvious choice.
Ismaila Sarr. So that is our last pre-season preview.
It's come to an end.
It's actually come to an end. Bradley, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, mate.
It's been a pleasure chatting about Watford. I feel like I've learned as well. I say that a few times.
I feel like he's learned, and I feel like he's converted as well. A little bit.
You know what? They might stay up. I'm saying might.
I'll take that.
They might.
I'll take that.
They might. But who knows? Once again, thank you, Bradley. Would you like a couple of moments just to tell people where they can find your podcast, your social medias, where they can find you?
Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a pleasure. My podcast at Vicarage Road. You can find on Twitter at Vicarage Road Pod. I'm also on Twitter as well at Bradley Hayden 11. So if you've got any Watford related questions that you want to ask, or any fantasy teams picks that you need some help with, and fire me your questions about anything Watford related.
Oh, me and Alex are
going to. I was going to say, yeah. We're going to be sorry you said that, mate.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you once again for joining us, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure, Alex. We've done it. 20 teams. 20 teams. Can you believe it? I can't.
Mate, it'd be good to be, going back to the once a week.
Yeah, I think it will.
I'm not gonna lie, I will miss doing it. But it's done. It's done. Thank you all very much for listening.
Yeah,
we'll be back. Can I just
whenever. Say, if there's anyone out there who's listened to all 20
of these, you've listened to all, message us.
Yeah,
message us. We'll send you a mug. No, we don't want to send you a mug. We can't afford it.
We haven't got mugs yet.
Oh yeah, we haven't. Yeah, but there's something new coming soon. Sam's quite excited about it. I'm quite excited about it.
Lots of new stuff dropping this year. So
but until then, I've always wanted to say that. Until then.
On that bombshell.
Thank you very much for listening. We're gonna have to go because we'll drag it out for hours otherwise.
Yeah.
Go on, Sam.
Thank you guys for listening. You can find us on Instagram at Send Him Off Podcast. Yes, that's the cast, isn't it?
It's Instagram. Twitter.
Twitter is at Send Him Off Pod. And you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you want. We'll be there. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time for the brand new season. So thank you. Ta-ra.
See you later, guys.